Longlegs is arguably one of the most anticipated horror films of the summer, and it's just been released. With all of the hype that it's received, it had high expectations that were put upon it. Focusing on a serial killer case that spans several decades, Special Agent Lee Harker was put on the case, and with her being assigned, the revelations and developments just kept on coming. With the movie being split into 3 parts, it having a twist at the end and a haunting laugh and kiss closing it off. Let's jump right into the video and break down all that there was to take away from the movie. Plus, I'll also give my review on it too and answer if it was worth the hype. So let's get into it. Here is Longlegs ending explained and review. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The ending explained. As we embarked onto the ending of this film, we saw that the opening section was from several decades ago, and it was when a then soon-to-be 9-year-old Lee Harker encountered Longlegs on her driveway for the first time. This was due to the Polaroid photo that she had in the box in her room which he made her take of him. With her mother finding her with him, Longlegs was on the cusp of killing her, but instead she quite literally made a deal with the devil in order to protect her daughter and herself, something which would allow them to become the only surviving victims of Longlegs, other than Carrie Ann, but as we saw, she was dead by the end of the movie. Lee Harker knew that Longlegs had an accomplice, but she couldn't work out who it was. It was only once she returned home to her mother's house and she saw that there was a doll of the younger version of herself that she knew that it was her. Harker's mother would pose as a nun, somebody who everybody could trust. She'd enter the house, and with the doll that Longlegs would make of the child, it would begin to possess everybody in the room, and ultimately cause the father to go on to kill the rest of the family before ending things for himself. There was a supernatural element at play in this movie, something which stemmed from the fact that Longlegs worshipped Satan. What was interesting about Harker's mother being the accomplice was the fact that she was previously an extremely religious person and wanted Harker to say her prayers so that she'd be kept safe. And as well as that, she was also a nurse before she started working with Longlegs. Whereas now, she'd moved to the complete other end of the spectrum. Instead of worshipping God, it was the devil, and instead of saving lives, she was taking them. The reveal at the end also added weight to the phone call that Harker had with her mother in the first part of the movie, where she said that she'd seen some dark things in the past because she used to be a nurse. But in reality, she was probably talking about all of the killings that she witnessed due to working with Longlegs. Longlegs was essentially living underneath Harker's house from when she was 9 years old, and she didn't know about it in the slightest. That, or she chose to not remember it and suppressed it, which could be why she acted the way that she did in the present day, avoiding going home and also speaking with her mother. She was an awkward individual and seemed like she'd gone through some trauma, and by the end of the movie, we knew exactly what. Seeing the frightening killer and also seeing her mother on the cusp of death. Harker had these abilities within her which enabled her to sense where the victims of Longlegs were, and she was able to decipher his language and codes that he used in his letters. This could be because of the black magic that was at play that Longlegs utilized in the dolls. There was a doll of Harker that had clearly been around for several years which Longlegs made, and it contained one of those silver balls which acted as a brain. This could be why Harker had those abilities within her, because the black magic that was within it could have had some kind of connection to her. This is why when it was shot, the black smoke was drifting out of the doll and Harker fell to the ground. So that could have been why she knew everything that she did, because there was a connection there. With Longlegs bashing his head on the table and dying, and knowing that her mother was the accomplice, she realized that Agent Carter's daughter had her birthday and that her mother was going to be targeting Carter's family to become the next victims, and that was exactly the case. Carter ultimately became a man that was possessed. He killed his wife, and then as he went to kill his daughter, Harker killed him, and then she proceeded to kill her mother as she was going to kill Carter's daughter as well. The last time we saw Harker, she was going to destroy the doll, but she couldn't bring herself to do it as she was out of bullets. It makes me wonder whether or not the cycle of evil has completely come to a close, or if now, with Carter's daughter possessed and Harker having experienced all of the trauma that she endured, will she continue the evil acts? Even though she was doing good in saving Carter's daughter, she ended up killing Carter and also her own mother, the very person who saved her all of those years ago by making a deal with the devil. So Harker ultimately became a killer, something which could have been Longlegs' plan all along. The fact that Longlegs was the last thing that we saw and he was smiling, did a kiss and said, "Hail Satan," maybe he wanted Harker to become a killer, and that's exactly why he had such an interest in her throughout the entirety of the movie. He was passionate about her. It felt like Harker's mother's interest in getting her to say prayers for protection was probably because she knew that she was sinning, and she felt her daughter might have been able to have kept them both safe. But because Harker showed no interest, it didn't end up mattering. There was no good in this film, only evil. Even the hero had to become a killer and kill 2 people that she cared for, so it was a dark film for sure, and one that had a relatively open-ended conclusion. My review of the movie. I feel like this film was pretty solid. I think the marketing team did a great job and gave this illusion that it was going to be one of the scariest films of the decade, but it wasn't that in the slightest. There was the odd jump scare which would catch you off guard, such as when Harker was looking at the Polaroids, and also the scene at the start when she first encountered Longlegs. But realistically, it wasn't really that scary, nor will it keep me up at night. It was creepy, but I still feel it could have been creepier. In terms of the way that it was shot, it was gorgeous on the eye. It was extremely glossy, and the focal point was always right in front of us, with the background seeming to always be slightly out of focus. This allowed us to really try to understand Harker's mind. She was a very awkward character and was clearly scarred by what she saw when she was younger, but the trauma that she witnessed clearly caused her to push it down inside of her, which is why she didn't have a clue. So seeing her awkwardness at the forefront and barely ever looking anybody in the eye all made sense at the end. I also feel like the elongated shots really gave this illusion of an uncomfortable nature, something which as I was sat there I just wanted it to cut because I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought Nicolas Cage did a really good job as Longlegs. He was creepy, but like I said, I think I would have liked to have seen it leaned into a bit more. I thought it was scarier when we didn't truly know what he looked like and there was only brief appearances with his high-pitched voice cutting through. That kind of leaned in on the whole what your mind doesn't know makes it worse. It was once we saw him that I didn't really find him as scary. However, the scene where he was bashing his head on the table, that was a dark way for him to go. I thought the story in itself was interesting, but I did get a little bit bored around the middle of it. We were told about the multiple cases and the decades that it spanned, but I found I did get a little lost throughout it as they brushed over a lot of them. Personally, I think I would have preferred it if there was no supernatural element and Longlegs was just this lone serial killer. One thing I didn't really see the importance of was Carrie Ann and her death and how she snapped out of her trance so easily. I understand that both Carrie and Lee Harker were kind of cut from the same cloth, both impacted by Longlegs due to what happened to them in their childhood, and it showed the 2 different paths that people can end up taking. But to me, it didn't really add anything to the overarching plot. I guess it kind of made sense and planted the seed that Harker's mother was there on the day that her family was killed, as after all, Carrie Ann did say that she felt like she'd seen Harker before, or somebody that looked like her, so I guess that was probably her mother. I thought the twist of Harker's mother being the accomplice was quite a good one. I kind of saw it coming as we entered part 3 just because of how scarred she seemed as an individual. She was just as creepy as what Longlegs was, so it felt like it was bound to be her. I thought the score that was beneath this film really complemented it. The opening section was actually probably one of my favourite parts of the film. I thought it felt really old school in its approach with the choppy nature, but also the elongated shots and the score hitting as cuts would get made. It set the tone for the movie well and it gave a good foundation for it to build upon. Is this a horror film that I'll watch again? Probably not. Is it one that I'd recommend? Yes. But I would argue that this kind of sits within horror and thriller. It feels more like a thriller due to the tone and searching for Longlegs and us watching the case developing with time. It's just got a bit of gore in there and a supernatural element which gives it that connection to a horror movie. I did very much enjoy the film, but it's one that I probably won't ever watch again, and the hype is definitely what's carrying it. So, there you have it. Longlegs ending explained and review. If you want to see more movies from 2024 broken down, then click on the card in the top corner. There's an entire playlist there. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. And as well, if you want to see what I gave this movie out of 5 stars, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. I review all of the latest movies over there, especially the ones that I don't get the chance to make a video on. What did you think of this movie? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, thanks for tuning into the video and I'll see you in the next one.